It started with the usual hum of generators at Camp Dawson, a Friday evening. We were on our monthly drill, 1st Platoon, A Company, 180th Infantry. Sergeant Thorne, that's me, had the squad running through some basic room clearing drills, M4s cycling blanks. Specialist Rodriguez, barely out of high school, was still struggling with weapon retention. Corporal Davies, our resident cynic, was complaining about the chow hall mystery meat. Business as usual. 0800 hours, day -2. The first tremor wasn't in the ground, it was in the air, a subtle shift in the comms. Staff Sergeant Rangel, our platoon sergeant, pulled me aside. His face was tighter than usual, a vein throbbing in his temple. Thorne, we're getting some unusual reports. Not public yet, but command is on high alert. Keep your people ready. No leave after drill. Unusual reports, Staff Sergeant? I asked, the static on my pelters picking up faint, garbled voices from some distant frequency. Civil unrest, East Coast. Something about a power grid failure cascading across multiple states. They're calling it a network event, but the chatter sounds like more than just a tripped breaker. He squinted, adjusted the sling on his M17 service pistol. Just keep them sharp. Don't let them pack their go bags for home yet. 900 hours, day -2. The drill schedule was suddenly, inexplicably accelerated. Live fire on the range, a fast-paced qualification course that usually took half a day, we blew through it in 3 hours. The scent of burnt propellant and hot brass hung heavy in the air. M249 saws chattered, M4s barked, Glocks popped. Everyone felt the shift. Even Rodriguez, who usually found a way to procrastinate, was moving with a new urgency, his face smeared with carbon from the range. My wife called, her voice tight. "Marcus, did you hear about what's happening in New York? The news is saying it's widespread power outages, but our internet just went out. My phone service is spotty." "It's probably just a hiccup, hon," I lied, the taste of dry MRE crackers and lukewarm instant coffee bitter in my mouth. "They'll have it sorted by morning." I didn't believe it. None of us did. 1800 hours, day -2. The order came down. Indefinite hold. All personnel restricted to base. No phones allowed outside the barracks. Only secure lines for designated personnel. Rumors flew like shrapnel. A cyber attack. A terrorist incident. A new, fast-spreading virus. The most chilling whispers involved a combination of all three. Davies was polishing his boots, a grimace on his face. "Saw a news clip, Thorne. Footage from Philly. People running, burning cars. Looks like a damn movie." "Relax, Davies," I said, though my stomach was clenching. "We're the Guard. We handle floods and riots." This is just a bigger riot. But the feel in the air wasn't a riot. It was a breakdown. The kind that made the hairs on your neck stand up. The kind that made you check your magazine count. 0500 hours, day 1. Reveille came early, too early. Before dawn, the camp was a hive of activity. Motors growling, generators roaring, the clatter of boots on concrete. A Company was issued live ammunition, full combat loadout, 2 days of MREs. Water purified in our own systems, but sealed in plastic bottles. Lieutenant Evans, our platoon leader, stood before us, illuminated by the harsh glare of a Humvee's headlights. He looked tired, his uniform rumpled. "All right, listen up. We've been activated. Orders are to report to Sector 7, City Center. The situation is fluid. Communications are down in the AO. No cell service, limited internet. We're going in blind mostly. Your radios are your lifeline. Keep them charged, keep them secure." He paused, taking a deep breath. "Our primary mission is to establish a security cordon around the City Hall district. Secondary, assist local law enforcement and EMS where possible. Tertiary, maintain order. Do not engage unless directly threatened. Use minimum force necessary to de-escalate. That means less than lethal if you have it. Baton or shield first. But if they go for a weapon, you go for yours. Got it?" A chorus of "Sir, yes, sir." It felt hollow. The air smelled of diesel and fear. 0900 hours, day 1. The convoy rolled out. M114 Humvees, MRAPs, a few cargo trucks. Packed tight. We were in the third Humvee, Thorne driving, Davies in the passenger seat with the M240B mounted on top. Rodriguez and Specialist Chang, our medic, in the back. The city skyline rose in the distance, a gray smudge against a bruised sky. No smoke, not yet. But something felt wrong. The highway was eerily empty. No civilian traffic heading into the city, only us. As we approached the city limits, the first signs of the network event became apparent. Abandoned cars, some with doors ajar, blocking lanes. A few smoldering patches on the median, like small forgotten campfires. No people. A ghost town. "Shit," Davies muttered, gripping the M240B's handles, his eyes scanning the rooftops. "Where is everybody?" Chang, usually quiet, adjusted her glasses. Her knuckles were white where she gripped her M4. They evacuated, or they fled. 1030 hours, day 1. We hit Sector 7. Chaos. Not the kind of chaos you see in movies with explosions and gunfire. This was a silent, festering chaos. The power was out. Buildings were dark, windows like vacant eyesores. The smell hit us first. Stale garbage, uncollected for days. Something metallic, like old blood. And a subtle undertone of something sickly sweet, like decaying meat. We saw the first bodies then. Not neatly laid out, but sprawled. A man in a business suit face down on the sidewalk. A woman clutching a child slumped against a bus stop bench. No visible wounds on most of them, just dead. No signs of struggle around them. "What the hell happened here?" Rodriguez whispered, his voice cracking. He looked like he was going to vomit. "Stay sharp, Rodriguez," I barked, trying to keep my own voice steady. "Eyes on your sector. Check those alleys." Our radios crackled to life, but it was just garbled static, then the voice of Lieutenant Evans. "Thorne, status. We've got a perimeter established around City Hall. Get your squad dismounted. Start sweeping North Block. Secure any critical infrastructure you find. Priority medical aid if you encounter survivors. Watch your sectors." "Roger that, Lieutenant. Moving to North Block. Over. 1400 hours, day -1. We were sweeping. Foot patrol. The silence was deafening, broken only by our boots crunching on broken glass, the distant wail of a sporadic, dying car alarm, and the rhythmic static of our comms. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat. Every doorway felt like an ambush point. We found a handful of survivors, a family huddled in a convenience store, barricaded behind shelves of chips, terrified, emaciated. They told us stories of a panic that started with the power going out, then sickness, then just people dying. Not from violence, but something internal. Some kind of cardiac event or respiratory failure, they said. Quick. Chang, ever the professional, checked them over. No obvious signs of illness, but their pulses were weak, their eyes dilated. She distributed some MREs and water. "We'll send a HMWV to pick you up when we establish a safe zone," I promised, knowing it was a hollow one. The safe zone was a dream, a fiction. We moved on, leaving them behind, a knot of dread in my gut. We couldn't save everyone. We had our orders. 1800 hours, day -1. Night fell like a hammer. The city plunged into absolute darkness, save for the occasional flicker of a distant fire, or the harsh beam of our tactical flashlights. The cold seeped into our bones. We established a hasty checkpoint at the intersection of Market and 4th, setting up a defensive perimeter with concrete barriers and concertina wire. The radio crackled. It was Staff Sergeant Rangel. "Thorne, we've got hostiles inbound on the south side. Not looters, organized. Sounds like automatic weapons fire. Command is requesting all available personnel. Get your squad over to City Hall, now. We're consolidating our position." "Roger that, Staff Sergeant. Moving to City Hall." My heart hammered against my ribs. Organized, automatic weapons. This wasn't a riot anymore. This was a war zone. 2200 hours, day 1. We joined the main defensive line around City Hall. Sandbags piled high, concertina wires stretched taut. The air vibrated with the distant thump of gunfire and the shouts of men. Lieutenant Evans, grim-faced, pointed us to a sector covering an alleyway. "Hold this position, Thorne. We've had probes all night. They're trying to find a weak point. Don't give them one." I watched Rodriguez, his face pale in the dim light of a chemical light stick. He was clutching his M4 like a drowning man. "Rodriguez, you okay?" He nodded too quickly. "Yes, Sergeant, just cold." But it wasn't the cold, it was the fear. I knew it, I felt it too. The smell of fear was a tangible thing, mixed with the acrid scent of gunpowder and the omnipresent sickly sweet odor of decay. 0300 hours, day 0. The night was a blur of adrenaline and exhaustion. We repelled 2 probing attacks. They were quick, brutal. Small teams, moving fast, carrying what looked like scavenged hunting rifles and some older AK patterns. They weren't after supplies, not directly. They were testing us, trying to push through. We took our first casualties. 2 men from 3rd Platoon, caught in a crossfire. Chang, our medic, was stretched thin, triaging and stabilizing. Her uniform was stained with blood, not all of it her own. She worked with a grim efficiency that belied her usually quiet demeanor. The radio was mostly useless now. Static, intermittent bursts of garbled speech. Commands seemed to be dissolving, or at least breaking down into isolated pockets. We were on our own. 0700 hours, day 0. Dawn broke, painting the sky in sickly shades of orange and gray. The city looked even more desolate in the harsh light. The streets were littered with debris, spent casings, discarded gear. The fighting had died down, for now. We were all running on fumes. Our water was low. MREs tasted like ash. Staff Sergeant Ranjo called for a meeting. His face was etched with fatigue. "All right, here's the situation. Our comms are completely gone. We've lost contact with command. We're isolated. We're running low on critical supplies, specifically medical. We've got a dozen wounded, and Chang's running on fumes with what little she has." He looked at Chang, who just nodded, eyes glazed. "There's one option," Ranjo continued, pulling out a crumpled, outdated city map. "St. Jude's Medical Center. It's about 2 miles northeast of our position. Big hospital. Should have a fully stocked pharmacy. If anything survived the initial panic, it'll be there. We need insulin, antibiotics, pain meds, surgical supplies. The works." My heart sank. A 2-mile run through this city? That was a suicide mission. "I need a volunteer to lead a retrieval team," Rangel said, looking around. Before I could open my mouth, Davies stepped forward. "I'll go, Staff Sergeant." "Davies, your primary role is heavy weapon support," Rangel said, shaking his head. "I need a squad leader. Thorne, it falls to you." "Roger that, Staff Sergeant. I'll lead the team." I looked at my squad. Chang, of course, was essential. Rodriguez, for all his inexperience, was a rifleman. And Davies, well, he was always good in a fight, even if he complained the whole time. "Who else, Thorne?" Rangel asked. "Specialist Chang, Corporal Davies, Private Rodriguez. That's my squad, Staff Sergeant. They're coming with me." Rangel nodded. "Understood. You'll take a stripped-down Humvee, minimal armor. Faster. Take only what's essential. Load up on ammo. Good luck, Sergeant. Godspeed." 900 hours, day 0. The Humvee was a relic, stripped of its doors for speed, exposing us to the elements and any incoming fire. The engine coughed to life, sounding like an asthmatic old man. We had our M4s, our Glocks. Davies had his M249 saw, its belt box loaded with 200 rounds of 5.56 millimeter. Chang had her medic bag, a small, worn canvas rucksack stuffed with what little remained. The smell in the air was thicker now, decaying organic matter, the faint metallic tang of dried blood, and underneath it all, the ever-present stench of fear and human waste. "All right, listen up," I said, leaning forward, my voice low but firm. "This isn't a milk run. Assume everyone we meet is hostile. Keep your eyes peeled. Davies, you're on the mounted gun. 360 security. Chang, you're looking out for obstacles, anything unusual. Rodriguez, you're my rear security, watching our 6. I'm driving, navigating, and covering our front. Comms are out, hand signals and voice only. Understood? Understood, Sergeant, they chorused, voices tight. The Humvee lurched forward, bumping over the broken asphalt, weaving through the abandoned cars. We moved slow, cautious. Every turn, every alleyway was a potential ambush. 10:30 hours, day 0. The city outside the city hall perimeter was worse than I'd imagined. More bodies. Some had been scavenged by animals, or worse. The buildings were silent, dark, hulking giants. Power lines hung limp like dead vines. Street lights were shattered. The air was still, heavy, choked with dust. We saw the first signs of recent organized violence. A burning car, not from an accident but torched. Spent rifle casings glinting in the sun, larger caliber than what we'd seen before. And graffiti, crude symbols sprayed on walls. Territories, perhaps. Warnings. Sergeant, Chang's voice was tense. Movement, top floor, white building, 2 o'clock. I craned my neck. A flicker. Someone watching. Then gone. Keep moving, I ordered, gripping the steering wheel, my knuckles white. Don't stop for anything unless we're engaged. Davis swung the M249, traversing its barrel to the building Chang indicated. Got eyes on it, nothing now. A gunshot cracked in the distance. A single shot. Then silence again. The sound seemed to hang in the air, a reminder of what was out there. 1100 hours, day 0. We reached the hospital complex, St. Jude's. It was a sprawling building, a mix of old brick and modern glass, surrounded by a large parking lot now choked with abandoned vehicles. Some were smashed, others simply left in place, doors agape. A few had their windows shot out. The main entrance was a mess. A hastily erected barricade of hospital beds and overturned vehicles had been breached, smashed aside. The heavy glass doors were shattered, fragments sparkling on the cracked pavement. Looks like someone already had a party here, Davis grunted, his finger resting on the M249's trigger. Let's assume it's not empty, I said, my voice low. Rodriguez, Davis, Chang, dismount, form up. Davis, you take point with the saw. Rodriguez, cover our 6. Chang, you're just behind me. Let's move slow. Stick to the walls, clear every sector. The smell here was different, stronger, a cloying mix of disinfectant and the sweet, putrid scent of decay. A hospital in collapse, a true horror. 11:15 hours, day 0. We entered through the ruined main entrance. The lobby was a scene of utter chaos. Overturned chairs, scattered papers, medical equipment strewn everywhere. A children's drawing, depicting a smiling sun, lay discarded next to a spilled IV bag. Dried blood stained the pristine white floor, now a dirty gray. Clear, Davis whispered, his M249 held ready. His footsteps echoed in the cavernous space. Rodriguez, check those offices on the left, I ordered, sweeping my M4 carbine across the room. Chang, with me. Stay close. Rodriguez moved, his movements stiff, hesitant. He was breathing hard. The kid had never seen anything like this. None of us had, really. Sergeant, I got bodies, Rodriguez called out, his voice choked. I moved to his position. 3 nurses, still in their scrubs, lay sprawled behind a reception desk. No visible wounds, but their skin was gray, their eyes wide and vacant, like the others we'd seen. Chang knelt, checking pulses, even though we all knew it was futile. No signs of violence, Sergeant. Looks like they just collapsed. Contagion? Rodriguez whispered, taking a step back. No evidence of it spreading among us, Rodriguez, Chang replied, pulling a pair of gloves from her bag. Just stay masked, stay safe. We all wore our issued N95s, though their effectiveness against whatever this was felt like a prayer more than science. Let's move, I said, the thought of an unknown sickness adding another layer to the dread. We're looking for the pharmacy. It'll be on a higher floor, usually secured. 11:30 hours, day 0. We began our ascent. The elevators were dead, of course. We took the stairs, a slow, methodical climb. Each floor was a repeat of the lobby's chaos, but progressively worse. Patient rooms were open, beds unmade, personal belongings scattered. The smell intensified with each floor, a putrid symphony of death and decay. We found more bodies, patients in their beds, some still hooked to dead machines. Staff in hallways collapsed mid-stride. A doctor, still holding a clipboard, slumped against a wall. The scale of the collapse was overwhelming. It wasn't just a breakdown, it was an extinction event for this place. "Sergeant," Davy's voice was hushed, "there are no gunshots here, no signs of a firefight, not really, just death." "That's what's so unsettling, isn't it?" I replied, my voice raspy. My throat was dry. The air was thick with dust and the lingering scent of chemicals. We checked every floor for any signs of the pharmacy. The directory was shattered in the lobby. We were going on instinct and the general layout of large hospitals. 1200 hours, day 0. 3rd floor. The sign on the wall, partially obscured by a fallen fire extinguisher, read, "Pharmacy and medical supplies." Our target. My heart rate jumped. The double doors leading into the pharmacy wing were reinforced steel, not glass, and they were mangled. Not forced open by hand, but ripped. A heavy vehicle maybe, or a very determined, very desperate group with breaching tools. "All right, team," I whispered, motioning them forward. "This is it. Davies, cover the approach. Rodriguez, check the stairwell to our rear. Chang, you're with me at the door. Let's breach." I pulled my breaching tool from my pack, a heavy pry bar. The metal groaned as I wedged it into the mangled door frame, pushing with all my weight. Davies kept his saw trained, scanning for movement. Rodriguez, pale and sweating, watched our 6. The door gave with a screech of tortured metal, swinging inward to reveal a dark, silent corridor. The air inside was thick, stagnant, carrying a faint chemical scent, like old medication. 12:15 hours, day 0. Room clearing. We moved with practiced precision, despite our exhaustion. My M4 carbine up, safety off, finger resting on the trigger guard. High ready. Davies moved like a shadow, his saw covering every angle. Chang, despite her smaller frame, held her M4 steadily, her eyes darting, searching. Rodriguez, though visibly shaken, mirrored our movements, his rifle moving with ours. The first few rooms were offices, desks overturned, computers smashed. More of that pervasive chemical smell. Then we found the main pharmacy, another set of heavy, reinforced doors. These were still locked, but not breached. Curiously, they looked undamaged. "Huh," Davies grunted. "Looks like whoever did the heavy lifting missed this one." "Or they knew what they were doing," Chang countered, her voice low. "Pharmacies usually have layered security. This could be a stronger room." I examined the lock. A heavy-duty electronic deadbolt, but the power was out. It was inert. "It's a manual override, or it's nothing," I said. "Chang, got anything in your kit that can help?" She rummaged through her medic bag, pulling out a small set of lockpicking tools, surprisingly. "EMT training, Sergeant. Sometimes you gotta get into a locked cabinet for meds. Not this heavy duty, but worth a shot." She went to work, her concentration absolute. The soft clicks of the tumblers filled the silence, amplified by the heavy air. Minutes dragged on. Every shadow seemed to stretch. Every creak in the old building sounded like footsteps. 12:30 hours, day 0. A soft click. The heavy door swung inward. We were in. The room was cold, even colder than the rest of the hospital. Rows upon rows of shelving. Cabinets, refrigerators. The light was dim. Only what filtered in from the corridor and our tack lights. The chemical smell here was strongest, overwhelming. "All right, team," I whispered. "Spread out. Search every shelf, every cabinet. We're looking for anything useful.
Insulin, antibiotics, painkillers, sedatives. Focus on sealed packages. Chang, you lead the identification. Tell us what's critical. We fanned out. My tack light cut through the gloom, illuminating rows of what should have been a pharmaceutical treasure trove. But as my beam swept across the shelves, my heart began to sink. Empty. The shelves were bare. Not looted haphazardly, not torn apart in a panicked rush. They were empty, clean. The labels were still there, indicating what should have been on the shelf. Ampicillin 500 milligram, morphine sulfate 10 milligram, Humalog insulin. But nothing, not a single vial, not a pill bottle. Chang let out a soft gasp. "Sergeant, it's all gone." Her voice was a whisper, filled with disbelief, with dawning horror. I swept my light across a refrigerated unit. The door was ajar, the interior coated in a thin layer of frost, but inside, nothing, only condensation. "Check the cabinets, the storage rooms," I ordered, my voice hollow. Everywhere. We searched, frantically, turning over empty boxes, opening drawers that were already gaping voids. The small, isolated storage room for controlled substances, locked. But when Davies forced the simple latch, it too was empty. Dust motes danced in our lights, the only things occupying the space. It wasn't a desperate civilian mob. It wasn't even the organized groups we'd encountered. This was systematic, professional.
The shelves were tidy, swept clean, like a distribution center had simply pulled its stock. 1,245 hours, day zero. We stood in the center of the vast, empty pharmacy, our lights crisscrossing the silent, vacant space. The only sound was our ragged breathing and the distant hum of a generator, somewhere deep in the building, struggling to power a single emergency light or a faint HVA system. Rodriguez, his young face streaked with dirt and fear, looked at me, his eyes wide. "Sergeant, there's nothing left." Davies leaned his M249 against a counter, the metallic clang echoing. He ripped off his mask, revealing a grim, defeated expression. "Cleaned out. Every damn thing. Who the hell did this?" "The staff," Chang said, her voice barely audible. "They must have, before the complete collapse, moved everything to a secure location or evacuated it." But where? And why hadn't they told anyone? Why hadn't they shared the information with the authorities, with us, the guard? The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. There was no secure location. There was no they. There was no authority left to coordinate with. The system had simply dissolved. The staff, facing the inevitable, had taken what they could, for themselves, for their families, for a hidden clinic somewhere, perhaps. Or perhaps they were just trying to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands, and, in doing so, had left nothing for anyone else. For us. The implications were profound. Our wounded at City Hall, they would not get their insulin, their antibiotics, their pain relief. They would suffer, and likely, they would die. Because this hospital, this pillar of our society, had been picked clean, quietly, efficiently, and left as an empty shell. "We need to go," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. The exhaustion was absolute, heavy in my bones. The professional resolve I'd clung to for days, the belief that we could still salvage something, it crumbled in that empty room. "But we found nothing, Sergeant," Rodriguez insisted, his voice tinged with desperation. "Exactly, Rodriguez," I replied, staring at the empty shelves. "That's what we found. Nothing." The chill in the room wasn't just from the lack of power. It was the chill of complete and utter failure. The chill of the end. 1,300 hours, day zero. The retreat from the hospital was even more silent than our approach.
We moved like ghosts, the weight of our failure pressing down on us. Every creak of the building, every distant sound felt menacing. The realization that there was no solution, no lifeline, changed everything. We weren't fighting to restore order anymore. We were fighting to survive, and we had just lost a critical battle without firing a shot.
1400 hours, day 0. The Humvee coughed and sputtered as we drove back to City Hall. The city seemed darker, more menacing than before. The abandoned cars, the hushed buildings, the silent streets, they no longer just spoke of breakdown. They screamed of irreversible collapse. We passed a convenience store, its front window smashed. A single half-eaten loaf of bread lay on the sidewalk, covered in flies. Someone had been here, someone hungry. "Sergeant," Chang's voice broke the silence, "what do we tell them?" I stared straight ahead, gripping the steering wheel. The truth. We found nothing, nothing left. The words felt like ash in my mouth. It was more than just a failure to retrieve supplies. It was a testament to the absolute breakdown of every system, every hope. The professional veneer I had maintained for days was cracking. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from a deep, aching weariness. 1500 hours, day 0. We pulled back into the perimeter around City Hall. The familiar sight of sandbags, wire, and weary faces brought no comfort. Staff Sergeant Rangel met us, his face expectant. "Report, Thorne," he said, his eyes scanning our faces. He saw it there, the defeat, the emptiness. I dismounted, my legs stiff, the scent of decay still clinging to my uniform. "Staff Sergeant, we reached St. Jude's. We located the pharmacy." I paused, taking a ragged breath. It was empty, systematically cleaned out. There was nothing left. Rangel's face, already etched with exhaustion, seemed to age 10 years in an instant. He simply nodded, a slow, heavy nod. No questions. He understood. He saw the truth in our eyes. Chang stepped forward, her medic bag heavy at her side. "Staff Sergeant, our remaining medical supplies are critically low. We have enough for maybe another day at best, for basic wound care. We don't have any of the specialized drugs they need." The news spread through the small, embattled garrison like a virus. The desperate hope for a medical lifeline evaporated. The faces of the wounded grew even paler. The morale, already fragile, shattered. Davies, ever the cynic, merely shook his head. "Told you this whole damn thing was fucked." His voice was devoid of his usual sarcastic bite, replaced by a hollow despair. Rodriguez, the young private, sat down hard on a stack of sandbags, burying his face in his hands. He made no sound, but his shoulders shook. 1800 hours, day 0. The night came, bringing with it a biting cold and a profound sense of hopelessness. The distant gunfire seemed louder, closer now. The organized groups outside our perimeter, emboldened by our weakening state, grew more aggressive. They knew we were cut off. They knew we were dying, slowly. I sat against a sandbag, my M4 across my lap, watching the darkness. The small fire we had going for warmth cast flickering shadows. The smell of burning wood, mixed with the ever-present stench of the city, was a miserable comfort. Chang sat beside me, meticulously cleaning her M4, though I knew she was just going through the motions. "Sergeant," she said, her voice quiet, "I did everything I could. I trained for this. But without the supplies," she trailed off. "It's not your fault, Chang," I said, looking out at the darkness. "It's nobody's fault, or everyone's. The system failed. It just failed." The idea of a collapse, a true, total breakdown, had always been an abstract concept, a worst-case scenario. We trained for it, we planned for it, we talked about it in hushed tones during exercises. But to actually live it, to breathe the air of its decay, to feel its cold, implacable grip. It was different. It was real. The thought of my wife, my family, safe or not, gnawed at me. I hadn't heard from them in days. No way to know if they were even alive. The world outside this small, embattled perimeter was a mystery, a void. Day 1, post-pharmacy search. We held on for another 2 days at City Hall. 2 long, brutal days. The wounded succumbed one by one. Chang, exhausted and broken, watched them go, her face a mask of grief. We rationed our last MREs. Our water filters were failing, the emergency water dwindling. The attacks from outside grew bolder. They had discovered our vulnerability. Our lack of medical supplies meant we couldn't effectively treat our own, let alone fight. Our numbers dwindled, not just from combat, but from disease, from sheer exhaustion, from despair. Lieutenant Evans, Staff Sergeant Rangel, they fought with grim determination, but even their resolve was cracking. The radio, our last link to any semblance of normalcy, finally went completely silent. No static, no bursts, just dead air. We were truly alone. On the 3rd night after the pharmacy mission, the order came. We were to attempt a tactical withdrawal, disengage, and move south, towards what was rumored to be a small rural fire base still holding out. It was a desperate gamble, a retreat, a recognition of total defeat. I looked at my squad. Davies, his usual cynical spark replaced by a quiet, weary resignation. Rodriguez, no longer the scared kid, but a hardened, hollow-eyed survivor. Chang, her medic bag now almost completely empty, her spirit almost as barren as the pharmacy we'd found. We were no longer soldiers of a nation. We were just men and women, armed and dangerous, moving through a dead world. Day X. It's been months since St. Jude's, months since City Hall, months since I last saw the faces of Lieutenant Evans or Staff Sergeant Rangel. The retreat turned into a rout for many.
We lost more men, more women to the roaming bands, to sickness, to starvation. My squad, we made it out, barely. We're in a small, isolated settlement now, deep in the hills. We scavenge, we defend, we try to live, but it's not life, not like before. I often think about that hospital pharmacy, the clean, empty shelves, the systematic void. It was more than just a lack of medicine. It was the physical manifestation of the collapse itself. The moment when hope died, not with a bang, but with the quiet, chilling realization that there was nothing left, no one coming, no one saving us, just the bitter, unyielding truth of an empty world. And we were simply left to pick through the wreckage and to remember. That's all we can do now. Remember what we found. Nothing. Nothing at all.